So we just covered caregiver financial health in our previous slides. It's time to consider caregiver career health, which includes your job and employment both today and in the future, as well as any business interests and your plans for retirement. Now, we won't cover all these topics in depth in this mini course, but we'll get after the top issues and challenges with some ideas on how to address those. It's surprising to many to see just how many workers are actually also caregivers. It's 15% of the workforce. That may not sound like very many, but it's a lot. It equates to about 23 million people. Those include both full-time and part-time workers. It's useful to spin that number around a bit and see how many caregivers also work. So not just how many workers give care, but what percentage of all caregivers actually have a part-time or full-time job. It's more than most people would imagine. It's 52%. So more than half of caregivers are juggling a job, a career, a business, some kind of employment, along with their caregiving. All these numbers essentially help us just see what's happening. 15% of the workforce give unpaid care in some way, but more than half of all caregivers work, and that's 23 million people. If you feel alone in the battle of balancing your career and caregiving, you shouldn't feel alone. You're one of 23 million other people performing this balancing act, and that balancing act is not always in balance. In fact, Fidelity Investments published a caregiver study in April of 2021 in which they found that of those who are employed and working while also caring for adults, 69% of them say that being employed makes caregiving extra difficult. The caregiving is made more difficult, but the work is also negatively affected. Buckle up for a few statistics on how work can be disrupted. A full 3 out of every 4 working caregivers, 76%, report that they have made some kind of adjustment to their work. When we talk to primary caregivers, that number shoots up to 82%. What specific adjustments? Well, 26% of working caregivers have reduced their hours or their job responsibilities. Related to that, but a little bit different, 19% have said that they've turned down new opportunities, including promotions. About that same amount of 1 in 5, or in this case, 18%, have taken a leave of absence from their job. And an additional 14% of working caregivers have retired early or completely quit. What we need to take from this is that caregiving has a very strong disruptive impact on working, employment, and our careers. Do you remember that story that we shared at the beginning of this chapter, of this topic, of the 2 sisters who are caring for their young 61-year-old mother? Caregiving can be extraordinarily disruptive to careers. And what we see over and over again in stories and research reports is that, unfortunately, caregivers don't have the time or make the time to be deliberate about their decisions and their trade-offs. Fidelity Investments, which we mentioned earlier, they're an investment firm that helps protect and grow retirement and other investments and assets. They've put a whole lot of resources together for caregivers. In this course's workbook resources for this chapter and in the scripting below, we've listed this link, fidelity.com/caregiving, which has many resources available to caregivers, including a cost of leaving the workforce calculator. When I entered my information for my wife and family and where we are in our lives right now into that calculator, it opened my eyes to the kind of trade-offs I just had not imagined. Now, it's a personal decision. We strongly recommend, however, that caregivers and families be deliberate in making the trade-off and decision plans with their eyes wide open to the impact of those decisions. Our next section will examine what working caregivers do and don't do to engage their employer directly.